Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming. I'm Deborah, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this Declare Emergency event. We've got 6 great speakers with us tonight, and they're here to tell us about themselves and their work with Declare Emergency during our last 2 waves of action in July and early October. We're planning more nonviolent civil resistance actions, and we invite each of you to rise above your own expectations of yourselves and meet our planet's crisis in a direct way. Our actions demand for President Biden to declare a climate emergency. Massive, ongoing, nonviolent disruptive actions are the only recourse left to turn the climate catastrophe around immediately. We need you, your bodies, and your solid commitment to our amazing Earth to win a livable future. We need people willing to match their actions with the urgency of this moment by coming to DC and engaging in nonviolent civil resistance with us. All of our speakers tonight have done that. After hearing from our inspiring speakers, we'll go into breakout rooms where we'll talk specifically about what we can do now to stop the petroleum-fueled death project that is on track to murder thousands of millions of people in the coming decades. To introduce our speakers, we're going to see some photographs of them, along with many others in action. But first, I want to acknowledge that there are others here tonight who were arrested with Declare Emergency over the past year, and many of them more than once. We wish we had enough time tonight to hear from each of you. Your bravery and sacrifice show us the way forward. And I want to ask, would everyone who's participated in Declare Emergency roadblocks this year raise your hands so we can see and appreciate each of you?
Our real hand or the fake yellow hand?
Either one. Wow. And me too. Thank you. And now, if we could see if everyone who was arrested during a Declare Emergency action this year, please raise your hand, either hand, or both hands. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Before I go further, I want to say, Tim, thank you. Tim is our tech person for tonight. We couldn't do this without you. No pressure. Thank you. And now Callie, one of our core team members, will show us photographs of this year's October actions.
Thanks, Deborah. So in order for me to do this, I have to be co-host again. So can I just be sure that that happened? All the trading around of roles. Thanks, Tim.
You are a co-host.
Yeah, thank you. It's such a pleasure to get to share these memories, these inspirations. It was a little less than a year ago that a small group of people started Declare Emergency. Not even a year yet since the first action. Over this year, with the support of weekly meetings with Roger Hallam and also with the A22 Network's International Mobilization Team, Declare Emergency has grown to be able to sponsor ongoing action waves like the ones that happened in July and again earlier this month. That's the idea, to keep growing. During the July action waves, 13 declare emergency supporters sat down on the road to block the beltway around Washington, D.C. at the Colesville Road exit. Traffic backed up so far that the road was not cleared for about an hour and a half. This is one of our key strategy points to bring disruption to business as usual. And then the Colesville 13, the 13 people who were arrested that day, came to trial finally on September 30th, which was coincidentally the day before our October actions began. The judge sentenced them to an unprecedented 4 days in prison. First offenses in DC are usually you're in 5 hours to get fingerprinted, and then there's some kind of plea that's very minimal. So 4 days for the first action, which it was for many of these people, was quite extreme. And that's where our October actions began, right where the July actions left off. Oops. On Saturday, October 1st, Declare Emergency activists created a live art installation at the National Gallery. They wore masks of children's faces that were created by one of our lovely Declare Emergency supporters, Kim, thank you. And they reached out to the museum visitors with their signs that you can see here. And also there were others there handing out flyers at the same time. So this was a very, as you can see, expressive beginning. And then at the same time this was going on, others were working hard to support the imprisoned Colesville 13 people, and checking on their needs around food and medicines and what could be done to get them out sooner. So that was part of the action week as well. And everything we did really over the next few days until the Colesville 13 were released, everything we did, they were, on our minds and in our hearts, of course. And then finally, on Monday the 3rd, they were released. One of the 13 was Deborah, who's our host for the evening. You're there. 3 others, Donna, Will, and Tarek, are speakers tonight also. Every one of the people who you see here came out of prison more determined than ever to make the necessary sacrifices and to continue doing high risk of arrest action. So beautiful and so inspiring. From here, we had a couple of days of more low risk actions. And then, oh yeah, there they are saying, getting out of jail, I should see that. And you can see that spirit, right? Yeah. And then here we are on Wednesday, where we had our first road blocking action of this time. And this was a road in Georgetown. And you can see those who've blocked the road and are being arrested in order to communicate with their bodies how extreme the problem that's barreling down on us is. The next day, on Thursday, our action was later in the day. We went to a Washington Pops concert of the music of the Grateful Dead, of all things, at the Kennedy Center. There we have some more. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had 2 of these. That's so good. There's Jim. And that's back at Georgetown. And you can see, for those of you who aren't familiar, a little bit of the process here. There's a real routine: sitting in the road, stopping the traffic, being arrested, making the sacrifice that communicates how serious we are about what we're there for. That was Wednesday. Then we get to Thursday. We had some fun on Thursday. We went to the Kennedy Center for this Washington Pops concert. And some of us stayed outside the concert. We passed out leaflets. And we also sang a song that was an adaptation of some Grateful Dead refrains. Our adapted words were, "Who will survive?" and "Fire on the Mountain." And we got pretty good after an hour or so at that. And while we were doing this action on the outside to really try to reach out and connect with the concert goers, we were there to make friends not really to disrupt so much. We thought this would be a friendly crowd. So, and then on the inside, at the same time, there was another group who attended the concert with a hidden banner and cameras to record the moment when two of the group rushed the stage and one was able to jump up fast enough to open the banner, declare emergency before the guards pushed her away. There goes Holly. Yeah, you'll hear from her in a few minutes, and also from Alex, who joined her in making that attempt. Now we come to Friday morning, and we're going to see several slides of this action. This is a classic road blocking action. We're blocking Highway 395 in Washington. For those of you who've wondered what it's like, we begin with two people going up towards the traffic and stepping in, waving flags and stepping into the traffic and stopping it, and then a line moves quickly into the road to secure the block. From there, we stand holding our banners, and then we sit down. Sitting down is important. It lets the motorists know that we're here for a while, because they really don't know what's going on. And also, this is our position of, we're settling in, we're here until Biden declares a climate emergency or until we're arrested. And this is just what it looks like to do this. It's regular people doing a road blocking action. And then the police come and they arrest people and take them to jail. So that's what it looks like. And really that's what we're here for, is to find people who will do this kind of action with us, because we think it's the only chance left to make enough of a difference fast. This is the place. Now is the time. And we're back on the Beltway. On October 10th, we went to the Beltway again to block that road, the one that the Colesville 13 had been jailed for 4 days for blocking. And you see, there we are. A lot of new people had arrived on Saturday and Sunday, and many of those people then joined us in the road. The 10th was Indigenous Peoples Day, formerly known as Columbus Day. And our numbers were strengthened and enriched by the presence of Indigenous people throughout the actions, many of whom were longtime water protector activists, working in actions like the Line 3 and the Line 5 protest. It was wonderful to have them with us. Sat in the road, held the signs and blocked the traffic. And you'll see familiar faces. Maple's here tonight, I think. And Tarek is going to be speaking, as will. So funny. It's a regular kind of thing to do, and it's also a ridiculous, impossible, necessary thing to do. And it's so good to have people to do it with who have the kind of bravery and steadfastness that you see on these faces in front of you right now. Tarek will tell you more about what This Is the Place, Now Is the Time is about. That's really the story for the Colesville 13 to tell. So Deborah, I think we've introduced our speakers, and one more shot. This is the traffic that was blocked that day. It went back a long, long way, and the road stayed blocked for a long, long time. Enough. This shot was taken by a news helicopter. There was a lot of media attention for the action, which is good, and maybe why even some of you are here tonight. Okay. Back to you, Deborah.
Thank you, Kelly, for that amazing chronicle of 12 incredible days in DC this month. So we'll now hear from testifiers about their own actions and experiences with Declare Emergency. And we'll first hear from Donna. Donna is a retired government bureaucrat with a passion for nature. She was part of the July 4th Beltway blockade. Donna.
Well, hi, everyone. I live in Virginia, and I'm terrified about the climate emergency and the climate chaos that's coming. I used to feel sad that I didn't have grandchildren, and now I'm actually thrilled that my daughter didn't have kids, because I just think that the future that we're staring at is just, it's terrifying. And so terrifying that I could do the terrifying thing of sitting on the Beltway. It was the first time I'd done anything quite like that. And it's scary to there were lots of really angry people, and people who said things like, well, you're not making any friends by doing this. I might support you, but we just said, I'm sorry, I'm here, and we need to do this to make it happen. So we definitely are pushing hard for Biden to declare a climate emergency, and I'm hoping that will happen. Certainly lots of people this is kind of snowballing, and it's just really important to try to take a stand and do anything we can, because really we're out of options. I do a lot of political work, canvassing and donating money, and working year round to get climate aware politicians elected. And then I work with 5 different environmental groups, and do a lot of local, state, and national work, but none of them are addressing the crisis in the way that I feel like it needs to be addressed. And so I just feel like we've run out of options, and this is the only thing we can possibly do. So that's all I have to say. Join us.
Our next speaker is Nora. Nora is a former teacher and has been involved with Declare Emergency since July, including 2 arrests. The first was for blocking an exit ramp of 395 in DC on July 1st. And the second was blocking the DC Beltway on Indigenous Peoples Day, October 10th. And you might recognize her from a dramatic video of her talking about the fossil fuel death project while she was being carried away by police. Nora.
Thanks, Donna. I want to go kind of way back to help frame my journey here, but I'll try and make it quick still. So I, first heard about global warming when I was a teenager, and I was like into science and stuff like that, but I didn't really worry about it because the trusted adults in my life told me, like, yeah, it's a problem, but it'll be a problem for future generations, not something you have to deal with. And I believed them, and they were wrong. And I'm kind of sorry that it's taken me this long to realize that I have to act. And I wish I had done something meaningful long before July of this year. But here I am now, better late than never. So I've been arrested twice, once in July for a roadblock, and then again in October for the Indigenous Peoples Day Beltway action. And part of my motivation for that is because I am aware of how extraordinarily privileged I am. Our system doesn't treat us all the same. I know that people of color, including Indigenous people, are not treated the same by police. I know that people who may be non-binary, people who might have less money than me, all these things can contribute to being more vulnerable to the cruelties of our so-called justice system. So when we're talking about civil disobedience and getting arrested, I feel like because of my privilege, I have a duty to take on those risks and sacrifices because of my privilege. For Indigenous Peoples Day, I also went, we call it going floppy. So this is what led to that video. And I did that for two reasons. One is to try and delay our extraction. So if we're there taking up space on the road longer, then we can cause more disruption. So that was part of it. And another part of it was trying to get good, photos and videos for the media team. And hopefully that was successful. It was a conscious choice though. That's the point I want to make. And it actually required a lot of conscious effort to maintain it because it was quite painful. Those cops were not handling me properly. They were dragging me, my knees scraped on the ground, like my shoulders and wrists were bearing all my weight. And my shoes actually got ruined because the toes got like scraped off. I didn't know all that would happen, but when I was released from jail, I was like really eager to see this video because I had kind of forgotten what I said. And I just wanted to see how it turned out after going through all that. And then when I first watched the video, I remember thinking like, oh yeah, that was painful. And it kind of like made me cringe to watch it again. It also made me cringe to realize, oh, my mom is gonna have to see this. And my family was upset when they saw it. So I'm telling you all this because I want to make it clear that we don't take these actions lightly. These actions are difficult. They have like real human factors. And I don't regret any part of it. We talk about these actions being sacrifices, but I don't really feel like what I did was a sacrifice compared to the sacrifice that our society is choosing. By continuing along with the status quo, we are causing harm and suffering. And acting to try and change that matters a lot more than my scraped knees or time spent in jail or even my job to me. And I next want to kind of circle back to what I said at the beginning about how it's not going to be in my lifetime. There are predictions about 2050 when the world is expected to be 2 degrees warmer. At that time, I will be 60 years old. That's well within my lifetime. And on our current trajectories, We can expect that when I'm 60 years old, billions of people will be living in unbearable heat. Billions of people will be chronically short of water. Hundreds of millions will be living with constant flooding or inundation of their homes. And millions of people will starve to death. They will die because crops will fail. And the worst part of this is that our government knows, our government has known, and they are still supporting the fossil fuel industry. The government has known for longer than I have been alive that fossil fuels cause death and destruction. And they are still supporting this fossil fuel death project. And that's unacceptable to me. And that's why I support declare emergency, because no other groups are behaving in a proportionate manner. Actually, I'm not even sure that we are responding proportionately to this injustice, but at least we are doing something to disrupt business as usual. And the more people who join us, the better chance we have at affecting change. So please join us. We need you.
Really strong words, and what a journey you've been on in your short life. Thank you. Next, we'll go to Holly. Holly is semi-retired and a longtime climate activist. She joined Declare Emergency in October for several actions. She joined Bob Weir on stage with the Pops with a Declare Emergency banner, and she was involved with both the 395 and Beltway blockades. Holly.
Hi, everybody. Nora, that was a great testimony. I've been involved in climate activism with Extinction Rebellion in New York City for 3 years. And when I first heard about Declare Emergency, I was a little bit, I was a little bit skeptical. So I sat out the first few week-long events, and then in October I decided that I needed to do more. So I came down to Washington, D.C. and joined in the actions and was very, very, very impressed. I mean, it's no easy task to walk out onto a highway where cars are speeding by, and that's what these people are doing. It's very brave. It takes a lot to sit there and endure not just people yelling at you, but people actively, maybe in some cases, trying to drag you off of the highway. That did not happen in any of the times that I participated, but I've seen videos of it happening. And I've been worried about the climate for many years. I was an organic farmer for 20 years in upstate New York. And that's when I really started to notice changes, mainly in flooding events in upstate New York, that, as the old dairy farmers said there one time, it's flooded more in the last 2 years than it has in the previous 50. So that woke me up. I have 2 children that I worry about, their futures in this ever-changing, ever-increasing crisis that we're in. I get very upset, very angry that more people don't want to get involved, because it's so important. This is our home. This is everything. The world is everything. And I am, quite frankly, just really appalled at the fact that there's a very small number of very wealthy, very elite, mainly old white men that are deciding the fate of the billions of people on this planet. And we really have to do anything and everything that we can to change this. That's why I'm doing it, and I hope some of you will join us. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Holly. Well said, and exactly, no easy task ahead of us. We'll hear from Alex next. Alex is an engineer who is also part of the Bob Weir Washington Pops concert action. He was arrested at the October 7th road blockade and participated in the October 10th road blockade. Alex.
Yes, hello. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. And thanks to all the other people that it gave testimony. So I probably picked up from the introduction, I'm one of the newer members of the group. And until probably 3 years ago, I wouldn't have really even considered myself an environmentalist. Like, I always felt that environmental destruction and waste and overconsumption were bad things and avoided participating in them myself. But I didn't realize until probably 2019 just what a desperate situation humanity's in. And I didn't really think about either until that time the fact that my individual choices in my consumption and patterns aren't going to make the society-wide difference that we need. So once I started paying attention to the situation, I was pretty shocked. I mean, we're on the brink of catastrophe, as you're all probably well aware. But the way that climate change was and really still is being spoken about in public, and in particular reacted to by those in power, just didn't seem to reflect that. Just isn't proportional to the scale of the crisis. I mean, as Holly said, this is everything at stake. There's really nothing that could possibly be more important. So I pretty much immediately got involved with some organizations. They were mostly focused in lobbying, on educating the public, on electoral politics, on doing things the right way, going through to the official channels and trying to accomplish this through democratic means. But I also got involved with an organization that did some of that and some civil disobedience. So I had some civil disobedience experience before it came to DE. But then more recently, when more and more both scientists and also people and activists who have been trying to go through the legal channels for years or even decades in some cases started saying it's time for more civil disobedience, I decided to get more serious about it and get involved with Declare Emergency. So as was mentioned earlier, I've done 3 actions with DE so far. There was the Pops concert action with Holly. That was my first one, so of course I was a little bit nervous, and it turns out I wasn't totally wrong to be. I mean, it didn't exactly go as planned. Holly did make it up on the stage. She was amazing. She got right past the usher, who was distracted at the time, sprinted by her, hauled herself up on a rather tall stage, stood up, held the poster, and yelled, "We are in a climate emergency." But then I got stopped by the usher. Holly ran past, and I got stopped right behind her, and couldn't really do anything. There wasn't any way I was going to get around her without being violent, and we can't do that. I mean, the whole point is nonviolent civil disobedience, and as I think Paul has kind of mentioned to me a few times, if we ever deviate from that at all, if we ever do anything violent, that's going to be what the headlines are about. So that was my first experience, and then the next day I got arrested at a road blockage. I have done road blockages before I came, a road blockage before I came to Declare Emergency, but not a highway blockage. And I mean, not everybody here will tell you that it's kind of stressful, and it's not the same thing as blocking a little surface street. It wasn't too bad for my end because in this particular instance, I didn't end up having to go into the road until traffic was already stopped. But so then, and we sat down, and the trainings that Declare Emergency will give you if you do sign up are helpful here. Or we were taught some relaxation and meditation techniques that did make it easier to stay calm as angry motorists were yelling at and or proselytizing us. This one guy was yelling back and forth about how we were sinners because all laws are just because God makes laws. But I got him talking about the biblical apocalypse prophecies, and that interestingly seemed to calm them down a little bit. And then I got arrested and held in jail for 30 hours. I don't know if that was because it wasn't my first arrest or because the cops didn't like something that I said. And then, and also participated in the Monday action. And I did not get arrested that day, but a number of other people did. That, as was mentioned, that was Indigenous Peoples Day. And one thing I really enjoyed about that action was we had Indigenous people there that were playing drums, and there were drums. There weren't just posters this time either. There was a turtle made out of birch bark. Like there was some singing, and the whole thing kind of felt it. We weren't just sitting in the road. It was purposeful. I really liked the drums at that event. Don't know if there's any. There's got to be some video of that. At both of those actions, I definitely felt some fear, a little bit from the motorists' wrath and from the threat of jail and legal consequences, but actually more from the fact that I don't really like this kind of attention, and it's actually a little bit of an effort for me to do this much public speaking as I'm doing right now. Oh, I don't really want my face going viral doing this hated thing, but that's what has to happen. And I like I said, I'm involved in a bunch of organizations that do lobbying and canvassing and do it the right way. And even their leaders are saying it's time to do this.
Thank you, Alex. We're indeed in a desperate situation. And very true, our leaders' actions have not been proportional to the catastrophe we're facing.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Thank you for your words. And I totally agree about our desperate situation, and that our government's leaders have not been proportional in acting according to the catastrophe we're facing. So we'll hear from Will next. Will was arrested in July for the Beltway blockade, and then 3 additional times in October with declare emergency, which is why he's currently sporting ankle jewelry. Will.
Hi. Yeah, I share a lot in common with everybody who's been talking about not really understanding the scope of the problem, or maybe not emotionally connecting with the problem, or maybe feeling helpless about the problem, or engaging in personal ways to change climate change, like going vegan and riding a bike, which I'm a huge fan of for like 25 years. But I saw something happen in 2019 that really changed my perspective a lot. One, I saw those Extinction Rebellion activists in London going out and occupying the city, blocking bridges, blocking roads, and really doing it again and again. I mean, the media is not out there a lot, but I'm pretty thorough in my research, and I noticed a lot of individual stories being told of people not just going out and getting arrested one time, but going out and getting arrested again and again and again. And that spoke to me. Something about that really spoke to me about what is necessary. And I listened to a lot of talks and things, and I really started to connect with the problem to a point where I felt like I can do this civil disobedience stuff. Anyways, I made some life choices, and I've been talking to people about saving the planet for a couple of years now. And I want to talk about the social experiment that I kind of do when I talk to people, because I talk to a lot of folks about this problem. And the social experiment, because we can make this really complicated, right? But just sometimes when I'm talking to people about this, I just ask them 2 very simple questions, because it's so easy for people to get abstracted. One question is, actually, it's just one question, really. It's, do you think that we could save the planet with civil disobedience? Or do you think that the point that we're at that point that we need to do civil disobedience to save the planet? And it really speaks to two things. One, business as usual, voting and things isn't getting it done. And two, like, is the problem that bad? Do we have to do something physical to ourselves even to get this to fix the problem? And like I said, it's a social experiment. You'd be really, really, really surprised. As long as you're talking to, folks of a relatively similar mindset, you might find 1 in 2, 1 in 3, 1 in 4 people are going to say, yeah, civil disobedience to save the planet. That sounds great. Let's do it. But then there's this long gap between them actually agreeing that's a good idea to actually doing it. And what I've found is that what closes that gap is talking to each other and telling these stories and telling about our experience. So as I said, I got arrested 3 times in October. Actually, I've been arrested 11 times in 2022. So looking for those campaigns, so like Extinction Rebellion. I think with Extinction Rebellion and Declare Emergency, I got arrested 5 times in April. Then I got arrested 2 more times in July. And then I think 3 more times in October, I guess. And I was really looking for that feeling of just, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to sit in the road, and then I'm going to do it again and again and again and again, because I really truly believe that that's what's necessary. And eventually it does catch up to you a little bit. So I have this ankle bracelet on, and my movement is limited. I was actually planning on, traveling around a little bit until the next trial, and doing some canvassing and stuff, and going to some cool places to talk to people about my adventures and things. And now I'm sort of limited to a 50-mile range, and I have a curfew, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. They follow me my every move, right? They said if I go out to walk a dog after 7 p.m., they'll know. So like, they're serious about this. And that's surprising. It's like, it's literally house arrest. So it's like, it's almost like, it's hard to imagine. Like, you take a shower and you have this thing on, you're cooking dinner, you go to sleep, you got this thing on your ankle, and it really changes your perspective on, the restricted mobility. But, that's the price we're paying for living in reality. The way I look at it, like, I don't see ignoring the problem as connecting with reality. I think if we're out in the road, if we're doing this kind of thing, then that's reality. So, it's weird that the state cracked down on me like this, but it's not going to stop me, because that's not who we are. I think as people, I don't think ultimately we're all going to just turn away from this problem and ignore it. I think we're going to face it more and more and more as we hear these stories and we do our research, like some of you are doing right now, listening to these stories and talking about it, and trying to see what you can do. And so Declare Emergency is one of those groups that's doing the right thing. I think Extinction Rebellion is also one of them, but I think Declare Emergency is just amazing. So I'm with them, and like I said, I've been to jail lots of times, and they're always there, helping to take care of me when I come out, supporting me. I don't even live in Maryland. I don't work in Maryland, and yet I have activists who have given me a place to stay and everything. And so I don't, even though things are would normally be very bad right now. You know, it's not so bad with the support of the other fellow activists, which is humbling. It's humbling beyond belief, but it's also what's necessary, I think. So anyways, thank you for letting me share my thoughts. I mean, really, it's a huge privilege to talk to all of you, and I wish I could talk to you guys and get to know all of you and your thoughts on this and what you're thinking. And because I want to know, like, because I'm already in this thing, what I have to say isn't important, like what you guys have to say and the stories that brought you to this meeting, and what's it going to take to get you guys to come out and join this battle and be rebels. You know, that's what I want. So anyways, thank you so much for letting me talk.
Well, thank you. What you're doing is necessary, amazing. You have done so much bravely and courageously. And we think of you with your ankle bracelet as such a hard reminder of what it takes to do necessary work. Thank you. Our last speaker before we head into breakout sections is Tariq. Tariq is a husband, father of 3 young children, and a climate activist whose kids are the reason he engages in civil resistance. Tariq was arrested in July with 12 other Declare Emergency supporters, including myself, for blocking the Capitol Beltway, and he came back again to join the October 10th roadblock. Tariq.
Thank you, Deborah, for the introduction. For my part, I'm going to start with a brief story from the New York Times this past June that told of a woman named Hersio Mohammed, and that she left her home in southwestern Somalia with 3 of her 8 children to cross a barren landscape in temperatures as high as 100 degrees, searching for food and water. Drought had essentially caused her crops to fail and her livestock to die, and so this is what forced her to relocate and search for better provisions. By the time that the Times reporter actually met Mohammed at an aid camp, about a 4 days walk from her home, 2 of the 3 children who traveled with her had died. One on the road, begging for food and water, and then one at the aid camp soon after arrival from whooping cough. Holding her 2-year-old daughter, Miriam, this mother of 8 children, 2 now deceased, said, "The drought has finished us." Now, this story, it really struck me at my core, as Deborah mentioned, that I have 3 small children myself, ages 7 through 1, and it's extremely difficult for me to imagine making those same decisions. Reading that article is a nightmare, and I wanted to let everyone on this call know that this is what climate change looks like. And it's happening at this very moment right now. This is actually, his articles from June. And this is why we sit in the road here at Declare Emergency. Now, my journey to Declare Emergency was a little bit different in that my background in activism doesn't come from the environmental movement. It's more, as an African-American Muslim, it's more along the lines of protesting against police brutality, the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, et cetera, along those lines. But really amongst the Muslim dialogue, and really across the spectrum of Abrahamic faiths, you find more and more that, the dialogue of, our worship of the Creator is not just in our service to humanity, it also is in service to creation itself. We're talking, the earth, the water, the birds, the fish. etc. It's stated in the Quran that when God created Adam, he said that he was creating a custodian. I'm going to create a custodian on the earth. That is to say, a caretaker, a maintainer, someone to ensure that this gift that we were given, it stays in balance. So along those lines, with that ongoing dialogue in my community, you know, I came across one of those declare emergency flyers in my neighborhood masjid here in Southeast DC. I'm in DC. So from there, I got on an intro call, got on the how to get involved call, and started to get involved in some of the working groups to see how I could help, you know, put an end to this death project. And so eventually I, you know, was a participant in the July 4th Beltway action. Now you'll notice that in that previous photo, you might've seen a photo there of us. And one of us is holding a sign, me, that, you know, this is the place, and you know, and Maple's holding the sign. Now is the time. I held that sign because I was part of the Colesville 13. I was part of those 13 people that, you know, did about a weekend in jail after getting sentenced on September the 30th. And it was a really good experience to kind of bump up against the system like that, and for it to kind of show its face, you know, and to actually get a good pulse that, as far as how some of our leaders feel about the climate catastrophe that is on its way for a good part of the human population. She had basically said that, you know, she made a lot of inaccurate statements. One of the most egregious being that, you know, you can't yell fire in a movie theater, and that there's a time and place for everything. And, you know, I'm kind of speaking on behalf of the Colesville 13 here. Almost all of us were just like, you know, those words were indicative of our leaders today. Just, you know, it was just like picture perfect of just, you know, of how our leaders feel about this climate disaster. That the reality is that the movie theater is on fire, and that this is the place, and now is the time for us to put it out. Declare emergency follows a strategy laid out by Roger Hallam himself, a co-founder of Extinction Rebellion. I'm certain everybody on this call knows who he is. Our strategy calls for bringing thousands of people into ongoing nonviolent civil resistance actions designed to disrupt business as usual again and again and again. By our willingness to make these sacrifices, to put our bodies on the line, we hope to communicate on an emotional level to just how desperate this situation is. Brothers and sisters of the human race, we are at a critical juncture in human history. The amount of time that we have left is wasting away. It's, you know, we don't want to squander any of it. Whether you're young, you're old, you have a lot of money, you don't have much, you're fleet of foot, you have a slow pace, I implore you to get involved one way or another and use your talents in the service of humanity. The New York Times article about Sister Hercio and her small children and her having to bury two of them on the way to finding, you know, a 2 for 3. I got 3 kids myself. I can't imagine going 2 for 3 with trying to, you know, give my children a better life, and to lose 2 of them on the way. That reality could very well be your own very soon, because the food shortages here in the United States are already here. The water shortages are already here, and it's going to get worse. No matter what your background, please, I implore you to get involved. Take that nonviolence pledge. If not for yourself, do it for those little hands in your life that draw those pictures, like the ones I have behind me, of a beautiful future. Let's join together, rise to the challenge of our time, our generation, put an end to this fossil fuel death project, and ensure that the future we give them matches the one that those little hands are drawing. Now, give me a second here. You know, it was just reading that story there and kind of going through it, you know, it takes you to, it kind of, it's a reminder, this is a journey, and sometimes I reflect on myself, am I acting in accordance to how serious this is? And, how much my children are going to, depending on me in order to put an end to this catastrophe. So you've heard my story and the stories of the other Declare Emergency supporters. Now we're going to move into breakout rooms so that each of you can decide what you will do in the coming months to stop this death project, this fossil fuel death project we call climate change. To take action and declare emergency is well marked. It begins with attending part 1 of our introductory talks titled Our Responsibilities at This Time. After that, you would go to a How to Get Involved meeting, and from there you would commit to working to build towards our next wave of actions, and also to do some Declare Emergency nonviolent civil resistance trainings. They're really important, and they really prepare you for the trials that you're going to face when you get on the pavement. And everyone as well is encouraged to make a commitment to donate 1 hour's pay to Declare Emergency every month. Everyone, I repeat, everyone is needed to join Declare Emergency's next action wave. If you're on this call, you tend to already, the gears are already turning up here about what you need to do and how dire this situation is. Join us on the road, get arrested, and demand, I'm going to repeat that, demand that Joe Biden declare a climate emergency right now. Thank you everyone for your time. I look forward to catching up with some of y'all in that breakout room. Now's our shot. We got one. We don't want to blow it. Thank you.
Woo. John, Tarek, thank you so much. Beautiful words. You're living your faith beautifully. We will go into breakout rooms now, thanks to Tim. They will be, I think, 20 minutes long. We're running a little long, but I could not cut anyone off because of the strength of these amazing testimonies. These breakout rooms will not be recorded, but when you enter the rooms, please turn your camera on if you've got it off right now. It'll help for some very human connection between us all, but these rooms will not be recorded. Tim is going to send us into rooms now. We do want to honor your time and end at 8:30, and we'll have a facilitator in each room to tell you more about what Tariq spoke about. Next steps. Send us away, Tim. You didn't get a chance to grab them there. And I'll say that the path to action that you've learned about, thanks, Tim, in these breakout rooms exists for one purpose, and that's to bring people to DC to participate in nonviolent civil resistance to disrupt business as usual. We're making a special appeal to ask that if you have expertise with TikTok or using an administering action network, please let us know in the chat or email us at declareemergency@protonmail.com. And that link will go in the chat too. And I know we're almost out of time. We will not have time for questions. Please, 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 if you have questions about the trainings, how to register, how to make donations, email us, declareemergency@protonmail.org. And I will quickly close with just a short statement. Thanks, Tim. Your presence tonight shows your concern about our collective future. The window for a livable planet grows smaller with every passing day as the Earth continues heating and as industry flexes its might, and as the enablers enable certain catastrophe. There will be no better time to act. Our crisis will only become more dire as there's less food, more casualties, more need, more mass migrations, more proof that governments won't act unless we apply great pressure on them. Declare emergency is a way forward, and it will take all of us to face this present and growing horror and push back against the big forces of regressive government, denialists, and industry and financial sectors. You are the brave ones who aren't looking away and who are willing to sacrifice to do what must be done. You know how deep denial runs, even as our window of opportunity to lessen the greatest harms closes. You delve into the awful depths of scientific fact and reason. Those of us with a conscience have no choice but to face these horrific facts and to act. You've seen the shocking images, trends, denials, false solutions, and short-sightedness in the world. It's all overwhelming and sickening. But your presence tonight is an act of hope because it's the only thing that makes sense, protecting what we love and need, and that's powerful. To choose to become an obstacle to a future hell is power. You know what's right. That power is awesome. It gives you strength and certainty. You are capable of more than you can imagine. At our hearing on September 30th, when the Colesville 13 got their surprise jail sentence, we were of course all surprised that we'd had no time to prepare. So there was this scurrying about as that reality sunk in. We were going to jail immediately. But as I looked down that line of this amazing group of humans who had jumped out of cars to face 4 lanes of angry Beltway drivers, I saw and felt this palpable resolve that wouldn't be squashed with jail time. That kind of camaraderie is rare, but it flourishes in this group of Earth protectors. The task is immense, but so is our commitment to a future we can live in. Join us to work and fight for this amazing planet. We won't have a second chance. Our time is now. We'll see you out there.
Are we on?
Yep.
So I'm going to be pleading not guilty at this trial, and the prosecution will need to prove why they think I am guilty, and that's why we're going to trial. And the thing you need to think about watching this video is, who are the real criminals? I did a roadblock, and right now the government is allowing fossil fuel companies and people with high incomes and people who don't need to do this sort of thing to exacerbate the climate emergency. And who's going to trial here? It's me. It's ridiculous. We need to bring that out. We need to make that stark ugliness of how things are currently set up. We need to make that real. So we need to make that real, and we will do that by taking it to trial, and you can do that too by doing this sort of thing as well. It can't just be me.
All right.